All right, I'm here to talk about how you can use your Oregon Trail Card to shop farmers markets this winter. That'd be PSU Farmers Market on Saturdays at the Portland State University campus, but many other winter market locations in the state. You could find all of them at doubleuporegon.org. And what happens at the farmers market is you're able to take your SNAP benefits from your card, and the market will provide a SNAP match. The SNAP match comes in the form of Double Up Food Buck currency. So what you'd want to do is grab your card, find the information booth where the folks will be able to slide your card and remove benefits from your card. The benefits that come off of your card will come in the form of $1 tokens, and these you can think of as your benefits. Anything you could buy in the grocery store with SNAP, you can buy in the farmer's market with SNAP. So that'd be fruits and vegetables, but also a bottle of kombucha, a loaf of bread, a pastry to take home and eat. Those are the things that you can purchase with your SNAP benefits in the farmer's market. Additionally, what's going to happen at the information booth is up to $10, they will provide a SNAP match. And the SNAP match is a free extra amount of money, up to $10 per week, that comes in the form of Double Up Food Bucks. And Double Up Food Bucks, on the back side of them, you can see this list, and you can also read about it at doubleuporegon.org. These Double Up Food Bucks are for fresh fruits and vegetables, but that includes mushrooms and beans and herbs in the springtime, vegetable starts, and raw and unprocessed nuts. So Double Up Food Bucks is for more fresh fruits and vegetables. It helps support the farmers. It's a match, a free $10 for you to go with the money that you pull off of your Oregon Trail Card. And you could do that, again, at many farmers market locations year-round. But if you wanted to look up the list, you go to doubleuporegon.org. All right, today we're going to make some quick pickles, also known as refrigerator pickles. So we're not going to be canning to the point that you could put it up on a shelf. We're going to quick pickle into our jars, something you can keep in the refrigerator for a quick snack. We've got one brine we're going to make, but two different fruits and winter fruits and vegetables that are available at the farmer's market we're going to use. We're going to do a quick pickle with beets and a quick pickle with these beautiful Gold Rush apples. So one brine, two different pickles. These recipes originated at Cook First's Disco Pickle event, which happened in 2019. We had some, and it will be ongoing. We look forward to it happening again. We had guest chef Hannah Lee from Closed Loop Cooking gave us these recipes. So they're up on our website and you can follow along now. First things first, I'm going to undo my bundle of beautiful little beets here and give them a rinse. We're also going to have a simple recipe in order to use the entire beet. We'll do a saute of the greens. Here we go. All right, so our first quick pickle that we're going to make, we're going to take our wonderful beets that we just gave a wash, and you probably need like 2 or 3 medium-sized beets. These are pretty small. They're what was available. I wanted to get something with the greens because I mentioned we're going to talk about pickling the beet and the stem and then sauteing the greens. We're going to consume this whole plant. Like, why waste any of it? That's definitely part of Hannah's closed-looped cooking philosophy. So I've got a handful of beets. I'm just going to chop off the greens and set those aside for sauteing later. So I've got my beets with their stems, and we're going to pickle the beet and the stems. The stems just make a nice little crunchy quick pickle, so why waste them? We'll add them in our jar. got my clean, empty jar. Get that one out of the way. And I'm going to slice off the stems. So I've got those. Remember, they're going to go into my jar, but I'm going to get some of the beet rounds in there first. And it's okay if some of the stems has a little bit of leaf on it still. You could sort those out or not, but so I've given my beet a little haircut. I'm saving the stems to go. I'm going to slice one of my larger beets. I'm going to cut off the top and the bottom so that it's got two nice flat sides, because these flat sides will help it not slip on my cutting board. So it's just really like a food safety maneuver if you're able to create flat sides with whatever you're chopping. And I'm going to slice my beet about 1/4 inch thick. And they're not perfect. They're not perfect. I'll show you what this one looks like now that I've got my beet rounds. And I need to make quite a few of these to fill my 16-ounce jar. I'm going to kind of separate them a little bit. They're a little stuck together from being sliced. But I'm just going to start to pack my jar with the beet rounds. I'm going to fill it up. I'm going to leave some headspace, because when we pour the brine on top of the quick pickles, you want them to be fully submerged. Not worried about being perfect whatsoever, but taking another one of my small beets, chopping off the top and the bottom, getting the flat side on the cutting board. These little beets are nice and easy to slice. Those will make tasty little refrigerator snacks to add to a meal. I need maybe one more. You can experiment with different types of beets. Golden beets would make really beautiful jar, of course. I like red beets. I like their flavor. I like the color that they'll produce. Get those in the jar. Leave plenty of headspace. It's good to have a napkin handy. Beets are going to stain your fingers, right? So I've got my beet rounds in there. I've still got plenty of space to put in the jar, and that's where I'm going to pack my beet stems. And I cut them to be the size that when they're standing up, they'll fit in the jar, right? You also want them to be submerged when you make your quick pickle. So I'm packing them just into all the space I can find. Not too tightly, but I'm filling in the gaps where the beet rounds didn't fill the jar, making sure to push them down. You can do this with a chopstick instead of your finger if you're trying to get them into a small space where your hand can't quite fit. And then for our recipe, we've got the beet stems and beet rounds. The jar is pretty packed, but there's headspace at the top. My recipe calls for coriander seeds, 2 teaspoons of coriander seeds, and when I sprinkle these in, when dispersing them in the jar, they'll fall into the little nooks and crannies, right? They're small. So 2 teaspoons of coriander seeds, 1 teaspoon of mustard seeds, yellow mustard or brown mustard seeds, either one works. Again, you maybe just saw my teaspoon overflowing. Does not need to be perfect. Measurements here for quick pickles. This recipe calls for some fennel seeds, just optional. Quick pickles, of course, you can cater to your liking. I'm gonna try some fennel seeds and nice, but just a couple pinches. It's a pretty strong flavor. Of course, garlic cloves. I love garlic cloves. So my jar is getting pretty full. I'm going to break off just one of these garlic cloves. Chop off the end, give a little smash with the knife, and that'll help, you know, the papery part surrounding the clove break off. And I crushed it a little bit when I smashed it with my knife. So I'm going to take these pieces of garlic clove, just push them down into the jar. It's helping push the mustard and the coriander seeds down. All right, and I've got my jar filled with my wonderful spices. They're starting to shake down inside the jar. This again might be where a chopstick might come in handy, or a stainless steel straw would help you push some of those things down. But this jar is ready. We'll get our other pickle ready, and then we'll pour the brine on top. So I'm going to set aside the beets, and we are going to do pickled apples next. We're going to get those ready and packed into our jar. And I'm going to get the quick pickle brine started while I prep my second pickle, which is going to be apples. And so a really simple, versatile quick pickle brine came from our friend Hannah at Closed Loop Cooking, who's one of our guest chefs for Disco Pickles. You can find the recipe online, but it is a cup of vinegar, apple cider vinegar, white vinegar, whatever you've got or you prefer. Today I had rice vinegar in the pantry. So 1 cup of vinegar, 1 cup of water. I've got my kosher salt. It calls for a tablespoon of salt. And then an optional tablespoon of sugar, and I'm not going to include sugar today, but that is something that you could cater to your taste. So that's it. It is just those 3 ingredients are on the burner. We're going to let them get up to the point that they're simmering while I prep my apples. So we're going to make a quick pickle with apples. These are beautiful Gold Rush apples. You want a nice tart and firm apple. You want to get them in the winter because or fall or winter because they're this year's crop. Always take the opportunity to talk to your farmer. Depending if you're gonna bake or put in a soup or pickle an apple, they've probably got an opinion of the best ones for you. They are the expert. And so these Gold Rush apples are something that I've pickled in the past and are recommended to me by multiple farmers. They're nice and tart, but they've got a little bit of sweetness to them, and they're really good, firm apples. So I'm going to chop these up. And when I chop apples, I want to get all those flat sides, right? So it's easy to chop. I really just like pull out the core. And I'm going to do like quarter inch slices again. On this, so I've got just like beautiful, that one's a little bit bigger maybe than I meant to be, but nice quarter inch slices. Don't worry about them being too perfect. If you've got a mandolin, that's a wonderful thing to use to just make consistent slices. But your knife will work just fine. Pickled apples are pretty unique. It might not be the first thing that you think of to pickle, but they make a great accompaniment. Give my brine a little stir. the salt is dissolving. If the sugar was in there, it'd be dissolving as well. I didn't have a spoon to stir it. I was just stirring the pot. Quarter-inch slices. One whole apple down. In a pint jar, this is a pint-sized jar, it calls for 2 apples, and that seems right on for the size of these. It of course will depend. Like our beets were a little bit smaller, so I needed a few beets. These apples seem perfect for just quarter-inch slices. Flat side down on the table. Nice little half moon or wedge shapes. And that might be enough to fill my jar. That was an apple and a half. I'm going to start to pack them in. And a pint-sized jar is nice. It is, honestly, it is the right size. Because again, I will want the brine to cover up the apples when it goes into the jar. So I'm going to lay in the jar on the side and packing it with apples so that they're standing up. And it'll give us the same opportunity to get the spices packed in there. Kind of separating the apples. Some of them fell over. I'll pick them back up. Oh yeah, that was a little bit less than an apple and a half. Filled this pint jar. Oh, beautiful. I love how that looks. So I've got my Gold Rush apple in the jar. Brine is simmering. Giving it another just bit of a stir. I'm going to turn it off because it is ready. And also my jars are about packed and ready. So for the apple, it is going to be accompanied by a couple cloves, and I have made the mistake of putting too many cloves into pickles. So one fell in there from the jar. I'm going to put 2 cloves in there. I'm going to err on the side of not that much clove. It's a very strong flavor, and it is something that I accidentally overdid a batch of pickled peaches once, and some of them are inedible because they had too much clove. So that is my story for you, to be careful of that. The other thing that's going to be a wonderful complement to these nice tart apples is some ginger. So I've got ginger root here. I already started to peel it. A wonderful way to peel ginger is to just take a regular spoon and pull, or basically like, you know, just pulling off the skin, the brown part that covers the root. And that is something that I haven't known for very long. It's a more recent trick I learned. And I'm just going to put like 2, what I would call like coins of ginger. I do like ginger, so something you could cater to your taste. I'm going to put these 2 coins. Again, these actually are maybe a little bit thinner than quarter-inch slices, but they'll slide right in there with the apples. I pushed those into the jar, and my brine is ready. I'm giving it another little stir. I'm going to pour the brine over. I might pour it over a sink, but I'm going to pour it at least over the cutting board so that I don't spill. And I'll pick it up and show it to you. It's hot, but not, well, it's warm, but not like boiling hot to handle the jar. I put enough brine in there that it's covering those beets and beet stems. The fact that it was pretty nicely packed is keeping them submerged below the brine is what we want. Some of the seeds came floating to the top, but that's okay. And I'm going to do the same with my apples. And this brine recipe was enough for a quart jar or 2 pint jars, which is what I have here. And I've got just a tiny bit of brine left in my pot. So that was like the spot on right amount. Again, because the apples are packed, try to spin this around, they're staying below the level of the brine. I'm gonna give them, there's some air that's probably gotten trapped in there. When I pack my fruit and vegetables, I'm gonna just pick the jar up and down, give it some taps. A little piece of apple floated to the top, you got away. That's okay. I'll do the same with the beets. Oh, and when I do this, when I tap it, I can actually see the beet jar can take a little bit more brine on top, so I'll pour that in. That was all of the brine, that was the perfect amount. Made a few more seeds float to the top, but that's okay. I'm gonna put on the lids and bring them up closer so you can see them. These are our beautiful quick pickles, which we'll want to let sit for maybe just like a day or two. The flavors will develop. Here's our apple, and here's our beets. I love that the red pink color just takes over. Yeah, they'll be ready to eat soon. Remember, we didn't can them, so they're not shelf stable. We're gonna put them in the refrigerator where they'll keep for like a month or two. So it'll be a snack that we can come back to. We can make a snack tray if we're hosting some folks, or we're just like refrigerator snacking in the middle of the night. We'll pop them in there and eat them as they go. And those are our pickled beets and stems and pickled apples. And there's a couple more recipes of what you can pack your jars with winter vegetables and use this same brine with a mix and match of different spices that complement the different fruit or vegetable. Yay! All right, and of course, to not let these beauties go to waste, we're just gonna do a quick saute of beet greens. You could follow this method with really any winter greens. We're gonna braise them quickly, so it's something you could do with collards or kale or chard or a mixture. At the farmer's market in the wintertime, there are beautiful mixtures of what they just call braising greens. And these are just hearty winter greens that need like a quick kind of saute and steam. And I'm going to do the stems and all. The stems and leaves, the entire beet green of my plant is chopped and ready to go. These are pretty small leaves, but into like bite-sized pieces. I am going to get my pan ready. Get my pan hot, or start to get it hot while I finish peeling some cloves of garlic. I'm not shy about garlic. I like a lot of garlic, so quite a bit is going in here. They're kind of small cloves, but I'm doing 4 cloves of garlic for this like serving of beet greens. So in my pot, which had a little bit of water in it, so it's sizzling, but that's no problem. I'm gonna add my oil. Let that heat up. It'll heat up pretty quick. It's like already fragrant. I can smell it. Pull out. Finish getting my garlic ready. I'm gonna put my garlic in there really quick, so that it's heating in the oil, but not too long, because I like the sharp flavor of garlic, so I wanted to stay with me. I wanted to make it to the dish at the end. be a part of my meal. So the garlic and oil in there. I'm going to give it a quick little stir. A leaf pops out, I just throw it back in. I'd washed the leaves, so there's already some moisture and water in the pan. I'm just going to throw the lid on. If the leaves were really dry and they needed more, I might add a little bit of water or broth. Broth would have a little bit more flavor, but I'm just going to throw the lid on there so they steam. They're on medium heat, and we'll give them a couple minutes. Kind of saute away in there with the lid on. All right, checking my beet greens. They're getting nice and browned and sauteed. The garlic has soaked up the purple from the beets. And I'm just gonna, bite one. That's how I'm gonna taste and know if it's done. They're done. I was thinking about it. They could go a little bit longer, but I like the bite of the Hardy Winter Greens. I'm going to turn this off, show them to you. You can see that they've browned in the pan. They only needed a couple minutes. At this point, you want to salt to taste. I haven't added any salt to these. If you flavored them with some broth, they might like it. You could also at this point toss in, I'm thinking like some fish sauce or some soy sauce is something that I might do to give them a little bit more flavor. But I'm going to plate these beauties so you can see them. I'm going to call them good and ready to go. Look at that. Abundance of garlic and just my beet greens. It's good to eat your hardy winter greens and use the entire plant. If you've got it, cook with it. There we go.
All right, welcome back everyone. If I can get the extra stuff there. Heather, are you here with us?
Yes,
Perfect.
yes I am.
Perfect. So we do have a couple comments, but if you have some more to share with us, then we can totally do that first and then do all the comments, questions at the end.
Yeah, that would be great. Everyone, I just wanted to say hello and introduce myself real quick. Like, thank you for being here and watching those videos. I work for Portland Farmers Market, so we run 5 markets. PSU Farmers Market is the one that's open in the winter time, as I mentioned in Double Up Food Bucks video. I also am a part of the group Cook First Portland, and we put together these videos in partnership as an effort to, of course, be a part of Fix It Fair, which is a wonderful event. But Cook First Portland, we're interested in cultivating the Portland home cooking community. So we have had on-site events in the past. I mentioned the recipes today came from our Disco Pickle event in 2019. So please check out Cook First at cookfirstpdx.org, or we've got an Instagram at cookfirstpdx to see what sort of recipes and events and things we're up to as we're able to start gathering. The recipes that I did today are also on Cook First website, and I dropped that link into the chat. And then I also wanted to mention in this theme of using the entire plant was inspired by Hana Lee at Closed Loop Cooking. And I am right now, I'll drop her apple scrap vinegar recipe is on her website. She's got a really nice video and instructions there. And I wanted to show you my apple scrap vinegar. It'll get up on camera. I keep it covered with a cloth. It's not really fruit fly season, but it keeps the flies away. And then I've got my apple scraps. I would always recommend putting the date on jars when you're putting things in jars and adding them to your counter. But I've got cut up apple pieces in here just with water and some sugar and a little bit of lemon rind. And then it's weighted down just with a shot glass. So I've got a pint-sized jar filled with sugar, water, and apples. The shot glass is just keeping the apples below the surface of the water. And you'll see that in Hannah's video. And this is just 3 days old at this point. I give it a stir every day. Right now it's just smelling like apple juice, but it will get more vinegary as time goes on, like up to 14 days to become vinegar. And you'll know that vinegar smell when you smell it. So I wanted to share this with you. This is just right now, this is hanging out on my kitchen counter, and it'll slowly become vinegar that I can add to salad dressing or soups. And I'm happy to answer some questions. Harmony, I haven't seen them. Let me know what they are. They're surprise questions.
Yeah. So one question that came in is, what other vegetables would you, or winter vegetables specifically, would you pickle?
Yeah, I in the theme of pickling or of using the whole plant, stems of other winter greens are good, not just beets, but you can pickle the stems of kale or collards if you're removing the leaf from the stem before you saute them. I also just really like winter collards are the sweetest collard greens, and you can just eat those stems. They're a delicious, sweet little snack. But pickling them would be great. I think pears, certainly. So trying other kinds of apples or pears are wonderful. Grapes are a fall food, like late summer, fall. But pickled grapes are really wonderful. We had a guest chef demonstrate those at our Disco Pickle event at the Lentz International Farmers Market. So pickled grapes is something special if you haven't had that before. Also is garlic. We have a soy pickled garlic recipe. If you dive into the archives on Cook First, not a vinegar pickle, but pickled garlic. Soy pickled garlic is something really wonderful.
That sounds so yummy. We also had a comment that mushrooms are great to pickle. So that's another idea of pickled mushrooms. Can you talk a little bit about the difference between apple scrap vinegar and like apple cider vinegar that you would maybe get at the store, or are there differences?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Your apple scrap vinegar that you make at home will probably not get as strong. It won't be as much of a strong vinegar flavor. It'll be more mild. And so that's why I'd recommend in soups or salads. You wouldn't want to, this is an important question, you wouldn't want to pickle with apple cider vinegar that you've made yourself because you don't know the acidity. And that's important for food safety. So I wouldn't, you'd want to either test the acidity, which is something I'm sure you can get test strips to do that. But I would use the homemade apple cider vinegar in soups or salads or as additions versus recipes that require like a 5 or 6% acidity to be food safe.
Yeah. And then you had mentioned during the pickling video that you could use all sorts of different kinds of vinegars. Would those then change the flavor? Like, is it worth experimenting and mixing and matching, or once the beets or apples or whatever we pickle, will it kind of even out and it won't matter what kind you use?
It does. No, it will definitely change the flavor. And I liked the rice vinegar is what I did in that demo. And that's not something I've done before. In the past, I've done apple cider vinegar. Apple cider vinegar is my preference. It's just a nice mild flavor. White vinegar, it can be quite like sharp, which if you want that in a like a cucumber pickle or a summer squash pickle, or where I think of using white vinegar. But I like apple cider vinegar, and then rice vinegar happened to be what we had on hand, and I thought that was really wonderful for those apples. They were actually apples that I pickled because they're so soft. They were like ready to snack on and eat immediately. That jar is already gone. I'm still working my way through the beets. I add them, chop them up smaller and add them to salads. But
perfect. So I'm just doing a double check to make sure that we got all the questions answered here. And it looks like we did. If anyone has any last minute questions to get in, please drop those now. I'm gonna post a couple links both on the on the Facebook page and on the Zoom chat. If you have questions after we get off, 10 minutes later, and you're like, oh, I should have asked this, please don't hesitate to drop us an email and we can get in contact with Heather and get answers to all your questions. So all is not lost if you are catching this later or just didn't think about a question right away. And then we will be back in a couple weeks with another great cooking demo.
Yeah, it is next week.
Next week. Oh,
yeah.
I need to look at the calendar.
I was surprised. It snuck up on me too. And there's a fun reason why we switched the schedule, but we'll be back next Tuesday. Hazelnuts are the theme, and I'm really excited for the dishes that we're making with hazelnuts. So we're not all the way through this series yet. We've still got 2 more, including a special guest chef who's here in the audience today and will be joining us in 3 weeks. So we're looking forward to it. Still lots of fun to be had. I think we're getting better at these.
Practice makes perfect. We're going to be pros here pretty soon, Heather. We got this.
Oh, Jana. Okay, I can see a question now. Jana wants to know if we can mix and match different veggie in one jar. You certainly could. I would. I don't know that I wouldn't mix beets and apples necessarily. I feel like I'd want things that were the same thickness and like density. Yeah, that's a word to describe vegetables, density. But I would definitely do a jar of mixed like apples and pears, or a jar of different root vegetables. I'm thinking of quick pickles with like carrot and beet and other root veggies would be a tasty like combination of a snack. I've also in the past, we didn't talk about pickling. Cauliflower is the word that I'm looking for. Pickled cauliflower can be really nice mixed with carrots and other veggies. So definitely combine them.
And with all of those that you just mentioned, is it all just like the few days in the fridge, or because we're not canning them, right? So it doesn't take weeks or anything in the pantry.
Yes, that is a good question. Quick pickles are things you're going to keep in the refrigerator, and you can probably keep them like 3 weeks or so. You'll maybe even longer, but you'll see if they go bad. Some pickles, the recipes will be different if you're going to actually process them in a canner. That's going to really help soften the vegetables. So I'll say these quick pickled beets, while they're delicious, they do really maintain their crunch, where a canned and processed pickled beet, like what you'd buy already made in the store or something you'd put into a canner, so it's getting that boiling water method, those will be a lot more tender. That is something to think about. It's a quicker process, but it does change. The canning can change the texture of the vegetable for a good reason.